After the firing test, we see the group of soldiers enjoying lunch. It is bountiful, with lots of different dishes to choose from. Dongjin is completely shocked at the fact that Minjun managed to hit 19 shots at the target and tells him that he was born to be a soldier, while Minjun compliments Dongjin for hitting 13 shots of his own. Dongjin mentions that he has had some experience but is not very good. On the other hand, he believes that Sergeant Lee Sung-ho is one of the best soldiers he's ever seen. On average, Sergeant Lee shoots at least 17 shots, which makes him the #1 shooter in the whole squad. While eating, Minjun listens to this and acknowledges that since the squad's average is 10 hits, Sergeant Lee is much better than the rest. However, he also realizes that he is officially the #1 shooter now. Banjin then gives our hero a word of encouragement, saying he's sure that Minjun will do great in the special firearms training. Minjun asks him about what had told him before that there would be 2-person teams, and asks him if he wanted to join him. Dongjin declines and tells him that the executives will be deciding the teams and that he couldn't guarantee anything, which means they never know who they're going to be paired with, which makes Minjun curious. He asks what the method and criteria are to decide on teams. Dongjin begins going into a rumor he heard, which states that the decision is done through the ladder lottery. Essentially, the ladder lottery is a method of raffles specifically designed to create random pairings between 2 sets of things, people or commodities. The scene switches from the cafeteria to the special firearms shooting range. The big and burly Sergeant Minji is standing there barking orders, telling the soldiers to get into their bulletproof vests and be on standby as the training would commence in 5 minutes. Every single soldier in the room is gossiping, wondering what the special firearms test would be like. Yet, Minjun was just standing there minding his own business. Of course, he wasn't going to get peace for too long. A man dressed in uniform comes yelling that he's in the team with the newbie, looking at our hero. Well, it turns out that our hero was teamed up with none other than Corporal Guangshik that enjoyed hazing. He walks in, saying that a corporal and a private are worlds apart, boasting his own skill. Minjun is definitely taken aback by this, wondering why he had to team up with this guy of all people. He also realizes something from the annoying behavior that he hasn't learned his lesson and was still going to continue hazing. The corporal starts talking to Minjun, telling him that the average finish time in the squad is 3 minutes and that Minjun should aim to improve upon it. His face has a devious look as he says that Minjun must finish within 3 minutes or he's going to regret it, but Minjun simply looks at him without responding at all. This annoys the corporal, and he asks Minjun why he isn't replying, pestering him by saying that he's lost confidence and his 19 perfect shots were just a fluke. Minjun is internally frustrated, thinking about how big of a loss this guy is and that he was a lost cause. However, Minjun replies to him that he will try his best to make him shut up. The corporal doesn't care about that, though. He wants Minjun to just provide results, and he says if Minjun finishes later than him, he would die. He points at the squad, talking to Sergeant Minji, and says that he should observe the team going ahead. The 2 soldiers stand in different elevators, whereas Minji stands in the middle as he tells them to get ready. It's Kim Monggi in shooting lane 1, and Jong Han Young in shooting lane 2, and those 2 state that they're ready. Hence, they start descending. The special firearms training starts after a group of 2 members of the same team descend in separate elevators and are sent down to the underground facility. This tactical training taught soldiers to slay monsters while protecting civilian target plates in an enclosed area. However, in reality, it has mutated into a competition amongst the troops. There was a race now, and the whole purpose of the trial was to see who reached the end fastest and cleanest. The final objective was to press the finish button at the destination before your opponent. Minjun was looking at the large scoreboard to ensure he knew what was going on. Minjun then notices that there were different-sized monster icons on the board. Guangshik then explains to Minjun that it showcases the threat. The more dangerous a monster is, the bigger the icon will be. He begins explaining to Minjun the format of the special firearms trial. He explains that there are 2 monsters on each lane, and the encounters will be randomized. You will have no clue what you're getting into due to this format, and it will surprise you. In the lanes, we see a participant currently in the trial running into a rake toad, which is a large and powerful creature. The rake toad attacks him with its tongue but dodges easily, and he seems to have gotten unlucky in the monster selection. On the screen, we can see that the participant ran into the bigger monster ahead. Minjun realizes that even if he moved fast, he got unlucky with the monster. He knew that his opponent would catch up to him. Of course, the opponent ran into a large rat and shoots it to shreds. He walks away from the dead rat's body, confident that he'll have an easy time in the trial and win this easily. However, he immediately runs into a large earthworm, which is humongous in size and had many sharp teeth. Meanwhile, the guy who fought the rake toad was shredding it into pieces with his bullets, but he yells out wondering if it was for real since he just got another rake toad to battle. He is visibly frustrated after killing the second one by unloading a whole clip into it. Annoyed, he thinks that his opponent probably won already. But when he reaches the finish button, it's empty. There is no one near it. He walks over to it and presses it rapidly with a big smile on his face. The buzzer sounds, and the crowd celebrates as the challenge was completed in 2 minutes and 24 seconds by the troopers. The others discuss the sandworm thing and how it was a worm that had an all-out defense. The winner mocks the loser, saying how could he defend the nation at this rate. Meanwhile, the loser just complains about his bad luck, but the winner didn't care as it turns out that they had a bet, and now the loser must treat him at the PX on the way back. They notice that aside from being late, the loser had also shot a civilian, which disqualifies him. The two walk out bantering about what they will buy, and the corporal notes that the two had made a bet before going in. This catches Minjun's attention, and he's intrigued by the idea of a bet. Surprising the corporal, he tells him that they should make a bet too. He says that the loser should grant the winner anyone's wishes like a man. This makes the corporal laugh as he thought that Minjun was full of himself because the seniors were nice to him, but he decides to indulge Minjun out of overconfidence since he was his junior. He then says that there is nothing a mere private can offer him, but there is always something a man like him needs. He decides that Minjun will need to give him his salary for 3 months if he loses. Minjun is a bit disappointed to see that he couldn't come up with anything better than money, which is such typical simpleton behavior. He agrees to his condition, and the corporal is glad because he is confident in himself as he calls Minjun a tough bastard. Dongjin notices the two talking, and he starts getting a bit nervous for Minjun. Minji shouts for the next group to get ready, and Minjun and the corporal get into their separate elevators, ready to start the trial. Minji asks if they need to say anything before going in, and the two simultaneously deny. Minji notices they're ready and initiates the trials. The elevators begin to descend, and we see Minjun lost in his thoughts as he heads to the underground levels. He notes that he fell for the corporal's cheap provocation and is a bit unhappy that he made himself noticeable, as demonic energy began to leak from his fist. However, he is well aware that he's not mature and will never let provocations slide by. As the elevator doors open, his demonic aura begins to sense the demons in the trial. At the top level of the building, the other candidates are looking at the score screen and are excited to see the trial. They're talking about how the two candidates made a bet and are confused about how a private could possibly hope to win against the corporal and wondered if Sergeant Minju will end up rescuing him. Suddenly, all of them are shaken as the ground experiences a harsh tremor. It moves rampantly, and some of them lose their footing and feel fear before the tremor stops. The candidates ask each other if it was an earthquake. Dongjin says he doesn't think it was. They look at the screen, shocked to see that one of the huge monster icons was moving toward the other monster icon in one of the lanes. The door opens, and Minjun makes his way through the lane, wondering what that tremor was. His face is filled with confusion and instinct, and his eyes are wide open. It is a gigantic one-eyed monster with enormous claws and horns, devouring a large rat. It looks straight at Minjun. Minjun stares at the big dumb monster as he was confused as to why it was eating another monster. The monster sees Minjun present in the lane with its glowing purple eye, and Minjun looks directly into its big ugly eye with a chill expression on his face. The monster begins to rage, pulling the rat out of its mouth. It throws the rat at Minjun, but he jumps and dodges the hit. While in midair a thought enters his mind, he wonders whether the fried chicken is on the menu for dinner, and that he should get through this fast so he can go eat. He then notices the civilian target he's not supposed to shoot and realizes that he cannot shoot mindlessly. The monster takes a step towards Minjun and roars loudly in the air just as Minjun prepares to counterattack. He loads up some demonic energy in his left hand as he wonders why the creature is rampaging. The monster sends a powerful punch towards Minjun with its massive claws, but Minjun strikes with a fistful of demonic energy. It sends waves of demonic energy onto its arm and carves through the creature's arm, cutting through it with 3 precision slashes. The monster begins to scream out in pain as its hand is torn apart and dismembered. Minjun sees this and smiles, saying that it had finally calmed down a bit and that now all he has to do is shoot it down. However, his attention is caught again. The monster's arm begins to regrow right in front of Minjun's eyes, and to make things more interesting, instead of regrowing its hand, it regrew a giant blade in its place. The troops can see that Minjun is fighting a large creature on the screen. They're all confused about what's happening and wondered if there had been an accident or something. Minji is looking at this with his jaw dropping and has a revelation. If the first monster is missing, that means the second monster was the Cyclops. Cyclops are also known as devouring demons. Once it consumes a source of energy, its regenerative and attack capabilities increase drastically until digestion is complete, but Minji wonders if there was something weird. This monster doesn't attack unless its life is threatened, and he wonders what provoked it so much that it broke out of captivity and started raging after devouring the other monster. It was thanks to Minjun and the intense demonic aura that he carries around. With a smile on his face, Minjun was dodging the excessive slashes from the Cyclops. He found himself high up in the air, battling the overaggressive creature and calling it an active son of a bitch. He loaded up his gun, knowing it would be easy to kill it with his hands, but he'll indulge in the gun fun since it was firearms training. He began raining bullets at the Cyclops' face. The bullets tore through its eye, and the monster roared out in pain. Minjun landed on the ground as the monster was suffering and dashes towards it. Minjun notes that its eye isn't regenerating very fast, so he can end it now. The monster quickly turns its head towards our hero as Minjun is running towards it, ready to strike. The Cyclops retaliates by swinging its sword arm. He is taken by surprise. He notes that the Cyclops knows his location even after losing its eye and wonders if it could still see him or if it did it by sound. Minjun bends his back like Beckham and ducks out of the arm slash. The monster takes the opportunity to attack with its other hand and slams Minjun into the ground. But the Cyclops realizes that something was wrong, as Minjun had the strength to block its attack as he was holding back the monster from squishing him like an insect. He considers how strange this whole thing is. He talks about how there was no way that the training center would use a monster this violent for training, and even though he squashed its eye, the monster knows where he is exactly twice in a row. This is where he has the epiphany. Minjun then asks the Cyclops if it was reacting to his demonic energy just as a purple aura surrounds his body. The scene cuts to the elevator door opening. Within the lane, Minji walks into the second lane, carrying his incredibly large LMG and 2 katanas on his back while looking like Korean Rambo. He thinks of the situation as a catastrophe and wondered why such an incident had happened to a newbie. Minji then blames himself as an energy-fed Cyclops isn't something a private could go up against at all with their firearm. He runs through the lane as fast as he can, hoping Minjun hasn't succumbed to his death and hopes that he holds on a bit longer. Meanwhile, the corporal had a great time in the trial. He looks at his watch and sees that he was about to clock in at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, confident that Minjun never stood a chance against his speed. The corporal wonders what to do with Minjun's salary. He decides he will spend it on his vacation, but as he nears the finish line, his hopes and dreams are crushed. Minjun is already standing there, inspecting the finish button as the corporal yells at him, wondering how he was already here. Minjun looks back at the corporal with an incredibly calm expression before sprouting into a really devious smile and pressing the button. The corporal's reaction shows that his life is ruined, at least for the time being. Minji makes it to the place where Minjun fought the Cyclops. He looks at the corpse and questions how Minjun could have shot the monster for it to end up in the state that it is in. Everything above the monster's chest was so graphically brutally blown away into bits. The corporal and Minjun walk out of the elevator to cheering and applause all around them. The others show appreciation for Minjun defeating a fed Cyclops, as some of them thought it would end in an accident. Dongjin comes running in, asking if Minjun is alright. Minjun is glad to see his buddy and tells him he's not hurt at all. Dongjin asks him how he defeated the Cyclops, and Minjun tells him that it was all thanks to his teachings. Meanwhile, the corporal is fuming out of jealousy. One of the troops reminds everyone that this team placed a bet and that the newbie won. The corporal smacks him on the back of the head, threatens him, and tells him that it's an unfair situation and that the bet was off. He points to Minjun and tells the others that there was no way he could finish faster than the newbie. He tells them that the special firearms training was designed to beat 2 monsters in before reaching the destination, and he did defeat 2 just like the rules say. He then asks how many the newbie defeated and reminds everyone that Minjun only defeated 1 monster. He points at them and tells them it was an unfair situation, as he too would have finished quicker if he only had 1 monster to beat, and tells Dongjin to say something too. Dongjin stuttered while trying to reply and felt a bit daunted by the question. The corporal orders him to say something and threatens him. Minjun thinks of the corporal as being one of the worst. He thinks about how, despite this scenario being unexpected, he doesn't feel good that he killed the monster with his fist, which was why he was planning to forget the bet. However, looking at him pestering Dongjin and behaving that way made Minjun wonder why he wasn't taking it out on him instead of Dongjin. Someone walks up to the crowd after hearing the commotion. The assertive voice mocks the corporal, saying that the newbie took the bigger risk and that the corporal should be ashamed. The corporal looks back and sees who said that. The mystery man reveals information about the Cyclops, saying they're harmless, but once they turn, their danger increases drastically. He tells the corporal that the newbie faced a much bigger threat, and everyone knows this. They're all shocked to see who said such wisdom-filled words. It was none other than Sergeant Lee Sung-ho. The corporal felt embarrassed and couldn't talk back to him. He then tries to mock Sergeant Lee, saying he was showing off his rank in front of the juniors. Sergeant Lee shuts him down, saying he's the one always showing off. The corporal tells him to stop embarrassing him with his jokes, and the sergeant decides to double down. He tells the corporal that everything that doesn't go his way becomes a joke to him. Sergeant Lee says that being a higher rank is great because he gets to embarrass stubborn donkeys like him. Minjun smiles as he now knows how things work. Meanwhile, the corporal is fuming red with rage. Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.